Welcome to Nasdaq TradeTalks. I'm your host, Jill Malandrino, Global Markets Reporter at Nasdaq. We're coming to you live from the Singapore FinTech Festival, and joining me for this segment, we have Chengyi Ong. She's head of APAC Public Policy, Chainalysis. We're here to discuss building stronger defenses against crypto crime in Singapore. It is great to have you with us, Chengyi. Welcome to Trade Talks.
Great to be here. Thanks for having me, Jill.
You got it. Let's talk about the digital asset policy agenda. How has that evolved in APAC over the past few years, and how has that impacted adoption patterns?
That's a great question, Jill. I think the overriding theme of the digital asset policy landscape in APAC over the past few years has really been first the creation and then the implementation of those comprehensive regulatory frameworks for crypto assets, those that go beyond anti-money laundering concerns to think about things like consumer protection, market integrity, prudential soundness. I think over the past 12 months, we've seen a lot of work, not just in forming those frameworks, but embedding them down. We've seen the Virtual Asset User Protection Act come into force in Korea. We've seen, of course, the virtual asset trading platform regime in Hong Kong and the progress that they've made around licensing. And then more recently here in Singapore, we've seen the custody and suitability requirements for consumers take effect. And I think what that's done is really not just keep consumers safer, but also give institutions like financial institutions, banks, asset managers, as well as real-world corporates more confidence to engage with digital assets. We've heard that on the ground with our clients, and we've also seen that in the on-chain data. So earlier this year, I think just a few weeks ago, Chainalysis published our annual Geography of Cryptocurrency report that really looks at market trends and adoption patterns around the world. And a couple of things that we saw: global adoption is up, but also more importantly, a lot of that growth is being driven by these high-value transfers that we consider to be signals of institutional activity. And so that's an area I think we're going to continue to watch closely going forward.
As crypto adoption grows, so does the usage for money laundering and other financial crime, which is true of any asset class. How does the ecosystem need to adapt to strengthen defenses against crypto-related financial crime?
So you're absolutely right, Jill. Last year, Chainalysis tracked over $24 billion worth of cryptocurrency flowing to known illicit addresses. But more than that, in our engagements with law enforcement, with exchanges, we're seeing crypto surface in an ever-widening range of types of crime which may take place far away from the blockchain, so things like tax crime, like narcotics, like fraud and scams. And so as you pointed out, as crypto becomes more accessible, more liquid, it's really becoming an instrument that's being used in more and more crime types. So what do we need to do in order to combat that? Singapore published its national money laundering strategy just last week, and one thing that I really liked in there was this call for a whole of society approach, and I think that's exactly what we need here. So we need to continue to reinforce anti-financial crime defenses at crypto exchanges, at financial institutions, because they're the gatekeepers to the ecosystem, but we also need to leverage analytics in order to look beyond individual crimes to understand the networks that are underpinning them, and most of all, we need to I think empower law enforcement with the knowledge, the skills, and the tools to be able to track and trace and freeze and recover assets.
Yeah, and that's a great point that you made in terms of thinking about it more holistically. So my question to you is, what role can public-private collaboration and partnerships play when defending against crypto crime?
That's a really great question. So here over the past few days at the Singapore FinTech Festival, there's been a lot of talk about novel approaches to fighting financial crime, and a lot of that is about things like sort of better understanding typologies in order to identify victims, devise interventions, breaking down informational silos. And I think the blockchain, the public and transparent nature of the blockchain gives us an advantage in that, especially if we can get all the right stakeholders in the room. So I'll give you an example. Earlier this year, Chainalysis launched what we call Operation Spincaster, which was an ecosystem-wide initiative to tackle scams and fraud, which are endemic in the region and indeed a global problem. Spincaster focused on a particular scam tactic known as approval phishing, which has cost victims at least $2.7 billion over the last 3 years. And what we did was systematically analyze blockchain data to identify compromised wallets. We then worked with law enforcement and with crypto exchanges across 6 different countries in a series of operational sprints so that they could follow up on those leads, they could reach out to victims, they could prevent further harm, and they could progress investigations. I think what that does is showcase not just the potential of blockchain intelligence, but the power of public and private collaboration tackling a single problem. And it's an approach that we're really looking forward to building on to go on the offensive in the fight against financial crime.
Yeah, that's incredible work that you're doing. Appreciate the insight. Thanks for joining us on Trade Talks, and thanks for joining me from the Singapore Singapore FinTech Fest. I'm Jill Malandrino, Global Markets Reporter at Nasdaq.